Hello. We will go for you know what after this. If you're a good boy. Good morning. Welcome back to another Read Aloud of Hero. We are getting pretty close to the end, maybe a few days left. Figure out what happens. I'm excited. You excited? He's excited too, I can tell. Alright, let's dive right in. Let's see what happens. Chapter 28. None of the four hesitated. The two older men hopped into the front of the truck while the two high schoolers got into the back. Zach and Kate just watched. It had been so real to them just a moment before. Now it turned out to be like they had all been actors in a scene with Mr. Herbert, the director, who just yelled, "Cut." "Go," Mr. Herbert said to the driver of the truck in the same tone of voice you used to tell a dog to sit. He waved dismissively with the back of his hand. The engine turned over, and Zach and Kate watched the truck quickly disappear, well over the speed limit, toward Montauk. Toward the real world, Zach thought. Kate spoke up before Zach. "You staged all this," she said. "For what? Your own sick amusement?" "It was a bit of a show," Mr. Herbert said. "I'll grant you that, but not in the way you think." "And what are we supposed to think?" Zach said, voice rising. "You put us both in danger, or at least you let us think we were in danger. Was the giant with you too? You're crazy, you know that? You're a twisted, crazy old fool." Mr. Herbert smiled. "You're angry," he said. "You noticed?" Zach said back. "Yeah, I'm good and upset." "Good," Mr. Herbert said. "Use it. You're much better when you're mad than when you're moping around feeling sorry for yourself." One more time, Zach looked down at his clenched fists, his whole body feeling pretty much like a clenched fist. "Maybe the one I should bounce around is you," he said. "We both know you're not going to do that. I'm on your side." "Right. You're such a good friend that you ordered the beating that sent me to the hospital. I guess you forgot to mention that last time." "I told him not to hold back," Mr. Herbert said. "It was an important lesson, and you know it. Trust me." Zach remembered the words on his computer screen. Trust no one. "I don't," Zach said. "Trust you. My dad used to always tell me, even about my favorite athletes, believe everything they do and nothing they say. That's pretty much where I'm at with you." "Get over it." He didn't sound like somebody trying to be kindly old wizard now, not somebody trying to be Zach's friend or a friend of the family. Zach stood his ground. "You don't get to tell me what to do." "I do and I don't. Riddles again." "I'm trying to help you. By hurting me, The old man nodded, smiling again. "You've passed every test thus far." "Not with the giant." "Oh, not at first, but it turns out you passed a different kind of test with him. Because you came back from that. Like a fighter getting knocked down and getting back up again. When you had to respond today, you did, like a champion." Kate said, "You make it sound like he's supposed to thank you." Mr. Herbert turned to her. "Doesn't matter to me, if he does or doesn't. I'm not here to please him. I'm here to make sure he's ready." Kate started to say something else, but Zach put a hand on her arm, stopping her. He said to Mr. Herbert, "That's what this has been about, some kind of training camp." I couldn't tell you that before. You had to think it was real," the old man said. "I needed to know if you're ready." "You keep saying that, but ready for what? To stand and fight." "I'm a kid," Zach said. "No," Mr. Herbert said. "You're a hero." "My dad was the hero," Zach said. "Well, now it's your turn," said the old man. "Now it's your turn." The words echoed in Zach's ears. Kate was silent next to him. He didn't blame her. What was there to say? A statement like that. What did it really mean? "Let's take a walk," Mr. Herbert said. "I'm not going anywhere with you," Zach said. Then he looked at Kate. "We're not going anywhere with you. We. Anything else you can say to both of us, and you can say it now, or we're leaving." "And go where, boy?" "Where does somebody go escape his destiny?" "You know my destiny too, huh? The way you know me and my family, even though we don't know you, and that's why you gave me these powers?" The old man looked genuinely curious, as if Zach had finally stumped him. "You think I did this to you?" he said. "You're still not getting this, are you?" He went over and sat down on the stone wall, took off his cap, and ran a hand through the white hair. "I did nothing of the kind. I couldn't." Zach looked stunned. "Then who did this to me?" Kate reached over, took Zach's hand, and said in a low voice, "He has a right to know." "You're right," Mr. Herbert said to her. "He does." "So tell us," said Zach. "The ones who killed your father are the ones who really gave you these powers," he said. "The people you think of as the bads." "That's crazy," Zach said. "I know it may seem crazy to you," said Mr. Herbert, "and there's no way to fully explain what's in store for you. You're going to have to learn as you go. That's what I'm trying to teach you. The bads, they don't give up. They don't stop coming, ever. You can never let down your guard, never get sloppy. Look at your father. One time, that's all it took. Now they're going to want you. Not dead, at least not yet. They're going to want you on their side," he grinned, "like you're their prodigal son." Kate squeezed Zach's hand. He made no move to take it away. "So Dad gave me these powers, not the bads?" "Strictly speaking, yes," Mr. Herbert said, "but it was the bads that forced the transition. One thing has never changed. Across all the years and all the battles, there can only be one hero at a time." "You make it sound like a long time," said Zach. "Well, forever," the old man said, staring at him now. "That's how long the fight has been going on." He sighed. "Your dad, he always thought he'd be able to prepare you when the time came." "Prepare me?" "For his powers becoming your powers when his time was up," Mr. Herbert said. The old man closed his eyes. He thought he had time, all the time in the world. He didn't. None of us do. He shrugged then, and turned and looked at the field where the plane had crashed. They finally took him down, and now he's out of the way. They're coming, boy, and they're going to come hard, the way they always have when they see an opening. "How?" said Zach. "That's the thing," the old man said. "We don't know. We never know. But when it does come, it's going to be big and it's going to be very evil, and innocent people who get in the way are going to get hurt, or worse." Zach said, "You make it sound like the devil himself is coming." "Oh, and he knows who you are," Mr. Herbert said. "It's why I've been trying to give you the preparation your father didn't, because the devil's coming for you this time. You're either with him or against him." He put his cap back on and stood up. "Next time," he said, "the giants will be real." That's where chapter 28 ends, but I want to read a little more. We're starting to get some answers here. "You've had enough for one day," Mr. Herbert said. "You'll see me again, and soon." Zach said, "Well, how do I know you're telling me the truth about all this?" "Because on some things, you have to go on faith. I've been warned not to trust anybody." The old man grinned. "Good," he said. "That means you're learning. There is one person, though, you'd better learn to trust." "Who is that?" Zach asked. "You," Mr. Herbert answered. He gave a little bow to Kate, turned and disappeared into the high grass, the way he had the first time. The last thing they heard was the sound of him whistling. This time, Zach let go. "You think he's really on your side?" Kate said. "I think he's on his own side," said Zach. "Is that enough for you?" "It's going to have to be for now." Then he added, "But only for now." He started walking his bike back to the road. Kate followed him with hers. They both heard the car coming at the same time, saw the headlights cutting through the dusk, and had snuck up on them, the way the whole day had. They froze as the car closed in on them, slowing slightly. It passed them and kept going. "They're coming, boy," the old man had said. "Here's all I really know for now," Zach said. "That old man, crazy or not, is the best chance I have to find the man or people who killed my dad." "Sounds like he knows already," Kate said. "I think he knows the team," said Zach, "not the player." "What makes you so sure?" "I don't know. I just have a feeling about this." "So what now?" Kate said. Zach threw his leg over his seat of his bike. "The devil he talked about," he said. "I want to see his face. I want to know his name." And that's where 29 ends. But let's read one more. What do you think? Chapter 30. The afternoon, Zach, Kate, and Alba came back from Long Island. Zach's mom was waiting for them in the living room, along with Uncle John. Zach's mom gave him a long hug, telling him how much she'd missed him, and when he was finally able to pull back, he looked over her shoulder and said to Uncle John, "You don't call, you don't write." "You got me," Uncle John said. "But in my defense, I have been a little busy, Zachary." Then he grinned and said, I also thought my personal bodyguard needed a little more time to heal and to think without a bunch of voices messing with his head. Are you really doing good? I am, Zach said. We had a good week out at the house. Just 3 of you? Uncle John said. He made it sound like a casual question, but his eyes didn't leave Zach for a second, almost as if he knew something. But how could he? Zach answered the question without really answering it. Quiet out there, just the way I like it. Kate and I had the beaches all to ourselves. I'm jealous. So, where have you been? Zach asked. Lots of places. Here and abroad, he said. Hong Kong led to India, and then LA. All of it business, all of it boring. But I'm back now to my real job, helping look out for you. A weird answer, Zach thought. Couldn't anything be straightforward these days? Are you staying for dinner? Zach asked. Actually, I'm taking your mom to a new restaurant as soon as we get some business out of the way. More boring stuff. Senator Kerrigan's rally in the park, his mom answered. Ah, our grand savior, Uncle John added with enough sarcasm. Okay, that's my cue to leave, said Zach, then told Uncle John to make sure and knock on his door before they left. He went upstairs to a room and pulled his laptop out of his backpack. No message this time when he powered it up. He still didn't know whether Mr. Herbert had left the last one for him, or if somehow Uncle John had hacked into his computer from parts unknown as a way of warning him about unseen dangers. Or crazy old men. Zach didn't know if it was possible. Didn't know who or what to believe anymore. He stared at a screen, a shot of a court at Madison Square Garden right before the start of a Knicks game, thinking that every time he got what he seemed like answers, he really ended up with more questions. Starting with this one. If he did believe Mr. Herbert's version of things, where did that leave him with Uncle John? Uncle John popped his head into Zach's room about an hour later, while Zach's mom was off changing for dinner. Hey, Zach said. Hey yourself. Uncle John took a look around. You know, all the times I'm at the apartment, I hardly spend any time up here in Zach world. We need to talk, Zach said. I know. There's an expression guys have when they put out a fist and have to wait too long, Zach said. Don't leave a brother hanging. You left me hanging that night in the hospital. Couldn't be helped. Whatever, Zach said. You're here now, and I think you owe me some answers. Uncle John sighed. This isn't the time. I saw Mr. Herbert again a few days ago. Uncle John turned around, closed Zach's door, checking to make sure it was shut, then sat down on the bed. Tell me about it. And Zach did. When he finished, Uncle John shook his head. Same old game for him. What game? He's the mischief maker, Zachary. The troublemaker. I tried to explain this to you that night at the hospital. Acting as if he's on your side, as if he's the only person in the world you can trust. He can be pretty convincing, especially that stuff about evil coming. Uncle John wasn't looking at Zach's computer. Even if he had been, he probably wouldn't have realized that Zach had been video chatting with Kate in her room, something they did sometimes for fun, even though they were in the same apartment. He left it on so Kate could listen. Con artists usually are convincing, Uncle John said. It's why they're so good at what they do, and why they last. He made it sound as if some very bad people are going to come after me, the same people who killed my dad. Uncle John motioned for Zach to join him on the terrace. Nobody can hear us, Zach said. Except for Kate, he thought. I just want to make sure your mother doesn't, Uncle John said. Your dad managed to keep her out of his real business all the years they were together. Now, we're going to do the same. It's for her own protection. There was nothing Zach could say to that, so they went outside. Zach, leaving the terrace door open a crack, hoping Kate could still listen in. The night air was cool, and the city looked as spectacular as it always did. You said you know all about Dad's secret missions, Zach began. But Mr. Herbert made it sound as if he and Dad worked together, Uncle John said. Did you tell him about our conversation at the hospital? No. Good, Zachary, good. The less he knows about what I know, the better. What does he want from me? He wants to get close to you, Uncle John said. But please, remember, he's the one who put you in the hospital. So everything he's telling me is a lie? No, Uncle John put an arm around him, pulled him closer. The best liars always know how to use the truth to make their lies seem more real. Zach looked up at him. What about all the bad stuff he says is about to happen? That's the thing, Zach. There's always bad stuff about to happen. He just wants to scare you as a way of making you think you need him. But he's the one who needs you, so you don't try to stop him. He's trying to trick you into trusting him by making it appear like he's some kind of wise man. It's all about trust for now. That again, Uncle John said. He tried to do the same thing with your father when he was young, when he realized the scope of your father's powers. But the older your father got, the more he saw through him, saw he was being used. Zach heard his mom's voice, looked through the terrace doors, and saw her standing in the doorway to his bedroom, pointing at her watch, more for Uncle John's benefit than his own. She said she would be waiting downstairs. Uncle John smiled at her, put his arm up in surrender. In a low voice, he said to Zach, I think your father realized too late just how dangerous your Mr. Herbert was. You really think the old man is that dangerous? And so should you. Uncle John leaned close as he opened the doors. The one who's coming after you is him, he said. The evil is already here. Wow. Really good chapter. Okay, I feel like we're really starting to figure some stuff out. So I'm going to leave it there. We'll pick up tomorrow and see if we can figure out more things and see what Zach's going to do with all this information. Who's he going to trust? Mr. Herbert? Uncle John? My wife, who's mocking me behind the camera? Or should he just stick with Diego and just sleep his days away, snoring, waiting for his walk? Do you really sleep? Hey, you want to go for a walk?